If you are like 75% of the population, you have not yet completed an advance directive. Now that includes a living will or a medical power of attorney, meaning here's a person I trust to carry out my wishes regarding health care in the event I cannot do it myself. What happens very often is, so we don't have to talk about death and dying, we make assumptions. My family, my friends, they know me, they know my values and my wishes. Well, we did a study where we tested your family and friends, and guess what? They guessed your wishes wrong 42% of the time. And that was under controlled circumstances. So you can imagine when really faced with the emotion or the devastation or the fear of somebody's dealing with a critical situation, the accuracy can go out the window. So it's really important for you to have something in writing to act as a guide for them to say, here's my limits. This is what I do and do not want in the event that I'm dealing with maybe the end of my life. What are those limits for you? So that's what the living will does. But here's the other problem. Living wills have also failed us. They're too nonspecific. How can you possibly predict all possible circumstances at every point in your life? Not really feasible. We can't always predict what the course of that illness is going to be. Maybe it's going to be short term, that you can recover from a crisis, and maybe it really is the beginning of the end. Sometimes it's also the emotional issues which pull people back, that although we know you in writing did not want certain treatments, the family's in distress saying, I can't let go. No, do everything possible, even if it violates your wishes. And the bad news is, because this is a very litigious society, if the family is all saying, treat them, doc, put them on a machine, that's exactly what's going to happen. So it behooves you to still have a living will because it says, these are my limits. But understand that you need to revisit that. Having a living will is only the beginning of the process. Because what you decide today you do and do not want may be different a year from now. It may be different 20 years from now. So for example, I've told my family, I don't ever want to be on a ventilator, a breathing machine. But hey, I might get a really bad pneumonia like a nurse I know. And maybe it just drops me and the doctor says, hey, if we just put her on this breathing machine for a couple of days, she can return to normal health. Well, in that case, that's a very reasonable thing to do. And maybe I return to health and maybe I don't. But maybe in 3 to 5 days, now my kidneys are shutting down. And now the doctor goes back and says, well, if we put her on the dialysis machine, a kidney machine, she can return to normal health. Gosh, mom didn't want to be on machines, but yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And maybe in 3 to 5 or 7 days, I'm doing well. But maybe in a week, my whole body's shutting down and I'm dying. And now my family's upset going, what have we done? Have we violated mom's wishes? And I say, no. Sometimes we can't predict. Sometimes we don't have the crystal ball. But if you are dealing with an ongoing illness such as heart disease, lung disease, cancer, etc., those are the diseases where we do have more predictable factors to look at. So those are the things that we really need to speak to and prepare for, and understand that where you are today, again, may be different because how you define quality of life will change over time. Another example, I, in this moment, would tell my kids that if I developed a really incurable brain tumor, for example, don't treat me. Take me home, give me hospice. But if my oldest son came up to me the next day and said, you know, Mom, you're going to be a grandma for the first time, I might change my mind. I might say, treat me because I want to see if I can be alive for the birth of this child. So that's why I say your living will is a tool, but it's only the beginning. Continue to revisit it, and especially through the course of an illness, because how we define quality of life, how we look at our goals, are going to change over time. Each time you relook at your living will, date it, initial it, but most important, talk to your family about it and your medical power of attorney. Because your medical power of attorney is the most important ingredient in this mix. This is the person who speaks your desires that you have previously stated in the event you can't yourself. So they need to be strong. They need to be advocates, even in the face of conflict, because they are doing a service to you. So make sure it's somebody that can support you, who knows your values. Illness is a dynamic and transformative process. So as I said, the things you would not put up with today, you may accept and put up with tomorrow. So continue to have the conversation. So part of the keys of dealing with your advance directives is do it as a family. It's less pressure. It's not just the person who's ill, but everybody over the age of 18 should have an advance directive or a living will. Talk it out. Talk about what your needs are. Talk about what your beliefs are in that moment and recognize they'll change. It may be a difficult conversation for your family initially, but over time you begin to normalize this talk, and this is really key. So for example, when I first started having these conversations, my middle son was 17 and he hated them. It always made him nervous. He always said, "Mom, is there something you're not telling us?" Well, that one is 33 now. And so now when I have the conversations about my living will, he goes, "Now, remind me how much I'm going to get when you die again." So it's not that it's going to circumvent any kind of distress when I die, but they will have a lot of conversations to draw on to say, "I remember we talked about this regarding our mother. I know that this is what she does and doesn't want. This might be a difficult situation, but we are honoring her wishes." That's the most important thing. So keep talking. Utilize what you've got in your life at that point. Maybe it's a story about a friend who died. Maybe it is something you saw on a TV series. And you can use those teachable moments to say, "Hey, if this happens to me, this is what I do or do not want you to do." So talk, 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 and completely normalize the process. If you are dealing with some real end-of-life issues, identify what the fears are, and therefore get the answers so that you're not basing any decisions on those fears. Really critical is also understanding the natural progression of the illness. What are you going to expect over time, with or without treatment, and how best to manage those changes? That's why being able to understand the dying process is a very critical aspect as you're making decisions. Talk out the emotional aspects, because again, that can create a lot of conflict and a lot of barriers if people are asking for treatment based on inability to let go or anger or guilt. "Gee, I wasn't there for you, Mom, for 10 years. I'm going to be here for you now." After you've talked about all those issues, then always the focus is on comfort and quality and dignity. What's right for who you are at this moment in your life, at this moment in your disease process. So go ahead and complete your living will. Get a strong medical power of attorney. But the most important thing you can do is continue the dialogue with your family, because that they will never forget. For more information, you can visit my website at passageseducation.org. There you'll find my list of free talks that you can attend or request one for your own group. You can schedule a consultation, or you can find some helpful resources.